balloons, bazookas, boobies, bosoms, boulders, cans, hooters, knockers, melons, honkers, jugs, rack, tatas, tits, torpedoes, guns, bust, doorknobs, coconuts, and our favorite one, the girls. Welcome to the All About Breastfeeding show, where your host, Lori, highlights mothers just like yourself and goes beyond the surface questions and digs deep so they share not only their joys and happiness in their daily breastfeeding life, but also their pain and struggles and how they worked through them.
Episode number 166. Welcome to All About Breastfeeding, the place where the girls hang out. I am your host, Lori Jill Eisenstadt, IBCLC, which stands for International Board Certified Lactation Consultant, and I help moms with breastfeeding. A couple of weeks ago, I provided a home visit for Nancy. I originally met Nancy with her first baby about 6 years ago. I love traveling around the valley and providing moms with lactation home visits. Moms love home visits for a variety of reasons. They like the convenience of someone coming to their home so they don't have to pack up a new baby, get in the car, and deal with any kind of traffic situation, possibly with a crying baby in the car. If they have not slept well or are not feeling well, they're not feeling so great, it's nice to not have to leave the house. Moms who have had a difficult birth are in pain. If they've had a cesarean section, they also really prefer a home visit. What I like best about meeting moms in their homes is that I get to see what their home environment is like, where they're typically feeding their baby, what kind of support they are using in the way of chairs and pillows or stools. Moms, they tend to be much more relaxed in their own home, and it makes it easier for them to comprehend all that we talk about during our visit. It also allows me to see their whole setup, all of their equipment if they're pumping and they don't need to schlep it to my house. I also get to see their whole nursing station set up, and if it's not conducive to relaxed and easy and convenient breastfeeding, I can walk them through and give them some suggestions that are quite helpful. I love the diversity of sometimes having office visits and having people in my home, and other times driving to their homes. I love driving around the valley, traffic and rush hour aside. This ex-New Yorker just loves having the mountains all around me and looking at them at different angles and with different lighting depending upon the time of day. This also gives me the opportunity to listen to music or podcasts during the middle of a workday. It often feels a little bit like playing hooky when I drive to a home, as it feels more like fun than work. When I first started my practice, I would say that about 80% of my consults were in my home office and the rest were at other people's homes. Gradually, home visits have become increasingly popular. I think this year has been actually more home visits than office visits. So when I arrived at Nancy's home, I was greeted by her sister, who walked me into Nancy's bedroom. There I saw Nancy sitting on the edge of the bed. I was glad to see her sitting in front of a food tray and eating lunch. I was also glad to see her in relaxed clothing. The delicious lunch she has tells me she's being well taken care of, and her relaxed clothing tells me she's doing exactly what I want her to be doing, resting and not worrying about getting dressed for visitors. I chatted with her about her birth while she finished eating, and I made notes as we went along. I found out that her little boy, named Adam, had been born 4 weeks early and weighed 5 pounds 1 ounce at birth, which is a great weight for being 4 weeks early. He had some troubles initially breathing, and so he spent some time in the NICU. While there, Nancy was told that his blood sugars were lower than expected. Since he was quite sleepy every time she went to the nursery to breastfeed, and his weight was down to 4 pounds 9 ounces, they advised 1 or 2 formula feedings, just until his blood sugar levels were at a level they were more comfortable with. So Nancy spent the first 36 hours breastfeeding, And for the next 3 days, Adam was formula fed. It seems he was having a bit of a problem breathing and was just not that thrilled with eating. This upset Nancy. However, she knew her baby needed to eat, and hearing about low blood sugars had her and her husband absolutely frightened. They did what any good parent would do under those circumstances: feed her baby. Nancy suffered from birth trauma, having had a 4th-degree tear, and as she told me what happened, I thought she was pretty lucky to be home with her baby less than 3 weeks after the birth. And you'll see what I mean once you learn how things unfolded for her. Even though this was her second baby, Nancy did not have these same challenges with her first baby. She suffered with pain and cracked and bleeding nipples with her first baby. Nancy told me that it took her 3 weeks to ask for help with her first, and by that time her pain level was excruciating. While I was able to help her make latch adjustments, her pain level was too high and her nipple tissue had considerable damage. At that time, I guess I suggested a specific nipple cream and to pump and bottle for 24 hours before trying to breastfeed again. Nancy tells me that she does not remember all the details, but does know that within 5 days of our consult, she was breastfeeding in relative comfort. But it did take a couple of weeks for her nipples to fully heal. So I don't remember all the details, but she filled me in on much of what I needed to know. Now with her new baby, Adam, her challenges were quite different. She continued on with her story. She had no pain, and that was partly because her newborn was not really at the breast doing anything more than sleeping. With her baby in the NICU and Nancy discharged by day 3, she spent the next 2 days at home with her other child, being well cared for by her sister and her mother and husband, and trying hard to get back to the NICU once a day with pumped milk for Adam. On day 6, Nancy unfortunately suffered a huge setback. She had begun to notice some pain in her belly, and 2 days later woke up from a nap in dire, awful pain, she said. After a phone call to her OB, she was told to go right to the ER. She did, and tests showed her gallbladder needed to be removed, and she would have surgery the next morning. There was no waiting on this. I listened to Nancy tell me this horrible story, and I typically do a pretty good job of keeping my emotions in check. I hear many beautiful stories as well as some shocking ones. And it's important for me to keep my wits about me so I can show up and be professional and be there for the mom that I'm working with. Becoming all emotional with moms versus being empathetic does not help me do my job well. Perhaps it was just one of those days for me. I am far from perfect. Nancy freely let tears roll down her face as she relayed to me her postpartum story. And as I listened, I do have to say that I had to wipe a few tears away. All I was thinking about was, gosh, how hard it must be to be separated from your baby. When they're in the nursery and you're in your own room, that's hard enough. But when you have to leave the hospital and see your baby only a few hours a day, for a new mother, that's heartbreaking. And now, her baby was still in the NICU, breathing just fine, but not the best eater. However, he had gained enough that he was ready to be discharged, and this turned out to be the same day she was admitted to the hospital. With her mom and sister spending the day with her, her husband went to the hospital to bring Adam home. The day Adam came home is the same day she had her surgery. I know this show is listened to by thousands of moms and some who have had to leave their baby in the hospital when they were discharged. I've never had to do this, but I can only imagine the emotional pain this causes. Listeners who have been in this position, only you can really know what it feels like to walk out of those hospital doors empty-handed. I just could not get past these emotions as Nancy continued on with her story. Thank goodness, though, the rest of her story was rather uplifting. Her surgery went so well, and she was discharged and home in 24 hours. Her baby was well cared for by family members, and Nancy said that her reunion with her baby just wiped out any sad feelings she had endured leading up to that point. So now, no more tears for Nancy. Now that I'm up to speed, we have to work with her current situation. What do you think she is now dealing with? I will give you a few seconds to contemplate her breastfeeding challenges. Well, pumping on a regular routine was hard for her, given all that was against her. Adam has been mostly bottle fed his first few weeks of life. Nancy has been trying to breastfeed, but between her bottom trauma and the gallbladder surgery, she needed some time to heal before requesting her home visit. Adam was 15 days old today, gaining well and a very happy baby. Nancy said she's feeling remarkably well with all that she's been through and is now ready to work on breastfeeding. By this time, I had jotted down all my notes. Nancy was done with her lunch. I had weighed Adam and evaluated his oral cavity and her breast and nipple anatomy. We talked about her supply, which is actually fairly well again with all that she has been through. It seems that with her pumping, she is providing about 60% of Adam's needs, and the rest he is being fed formula. She feels he's doing fine with the formula. However, she really wants to exclusively breastfeed, at least for the next 2 months, while she is able to stay at home. I watch her and Adam together, and I quickly notice that Adam pushes away, and sometimes pretty hard. He's a strong little guy. Nancy says that he does this most of the time, and only some of the times does he actually relax and just latch on. She looked to me for help, and I suggested she pretend I wasn't there and to do whatever it is she would normally do. I watched Nancy spend the next 10 minutes working hard to get Adam to latch on. He fussed and he cried and he pushed away. And each time he did so, Nancy said, "Come on, you can do it," and she just brought him back onto the breast. I guess that she put him back on about 15 times in this time period. When nothing worked, she gave him a pacifier to calm him down, and then she started the whole process all over again. I asked Nancy how long she keeps trying and what she does when he just won't take the breast. She said she gives it about a half hour, and then she gives up and gives him the bottle. She said that she keeps trying so hard and for so long because there are times when he eventually has given in and breastfeeds. I can totally understand her logic. I did explain to her, though, that this way going about it, it may make him more aversive to trying, and that my concern is that he will turn a corner in the opposite direction and just one day refuse the breast altogether. Since her latch technique was really good, and since everything with her breast and nipple anatomy, as well as the baby's oral anatomy, all checked out to be normal, and after trying all my tricks for about 15 minutes, I felt that we just needed to find a way that Adam would consistently go to the breast and get used to being held close to her in a calm and relaxed fashion while getting milk at the breast. After a little discussion with Nancy, I settled on suggesting she try the nipple shield. And for Adam, it was like night and day. He latched onto the shield. He did fuss a little bit and whine for a minute or two, but nothing like the hard crying and fighting and flailing about he had been doing at the bare breast. I suggested that Nancy gently sing to him, and within a few minutes of some gentle sucking, he was able to get a letdown, and from that point on, he settled in and had a great feeding on that side. When she switched to the second side, he fussed as if he had never done this before. Picking him up and calming him down for a few minutes and trying again, well, that really worked for her. And this time, he took the shield quite easily. Now there were happy tears with Nancy. I talked to her about the suggested care plan and made sure she knew that this was going to be a work in progress. That's one thing that I want ladies to know, is that sometimes when breastfeeding, you get off to a hard start or you're just having some challenges. Sometimes the fix doesn't necessarily happen when myself as an IBCLC or someone else, another IBCLC, you visit with them. Sometimes it's not like waving that magic wand and everything is fixed right away. Sometimes it just takes a little bit more time, a couple of days or a week or so, until things start to fall into place. From Adam's behavior, he clearly told us in his own way that his big issue was his strong preference to getting fed from the bottle. It was familiar to him, the reward was immediate, and he could get tanked up pretty darn quickly. Now, since she wasn't making enough milk for Adam, Nancy was still going to need to give him a bottle after most feedings. This was likely going to slow their progress. However, I imagine that each day it would become easier and easier. See, the key here was to bring him to the breast for every single feeding with the nipple shield in place. Once done, offer him the rest of his feeding from a bottle. And once he settled down, that's when she could pump both sides. And if someone else was with her, they could give Adam his bottle and she could be free to pump, which will shorten this whole care plan. I also walked her through a bottle feeding where she learned how to hold Adam in a more upright position than she had been doing, and I talked her through how to pace the feeding. All these little things, it helps Adam be less fussier at the breast. It took longer than I would have liked, but she did persevere, and by the time he was a month old, Adam was exclusively breastfeeding and still using the nipple shield. Moms that I work with hear me say that I'm greedy about breastfeeding. I want it to be as easy and as normal as possible. Nursing full-time with a nipple shield with a baby that can bear breastfeed, it's not necessarily my ideal breastfeeding situation. By the time she had a good supply and Adam could have a full feeding at the breast, Nancy did spend a few days trying some tips that I shared with her, trying to wean him from the shield. But she told me that he cried and cried so hard, and she just lacked the stamina and the emotional ability to just keep at it, and decided that she was okay to use the shield full time. We talked about ways to ensure she keeps up a good supply, and I left the conversation letting her know that she's the mom and this is her baby, and she gets to choose how she wants to feed her baby. I fully support her decision, however, wanted her to know that she was free to call me if she changed her mind and wanted to work to bring Adam to the bare breast. I think it's okay that as an IBCLC, I fully support moms and their choices. I understand why she's okay with the shield full time, and I also want to let her know that there comes a time that she wants to wean him from the shield, that I am here for her. As a side note, I want to be sure that you know that all babies and moms should be evaluated individually and together to see if a nipple shield is appropriate for their situation, which size to use, and also to be sure that your baby is actually transferring milk and be followed up by an IBCLC. There are enough times when it's used for the wrong reasons, and the nipple shield can actually make breastfeeding worse than better. I like to share with you Nancy's story so you can see some of the challenges that some moms have with breastfeeding. Her story highlights the importance of having postpartum help and how important that it is to the healing and recovery for moms. You just don't know how your birth is going to go, or if you're going to have any struggles with your health or your baby's health or breastfeeding afterwards. I know that you'll hear from me and my guests the importance of making sure you have all your ducks in a row before your baby's born. Who is going to help and support you, and your partner after your baby's born? Do you have a third person in mind that loves you and gets along well with both you and your partner? Can they step in with household help, a meal, a helping hand with newborn holding, cuddling, diaper changing if need be? Is there someone who can drive you to appointments if need be? Watch a toddler for an afternoon? Stay up with a well-fed but fussy baby so you can get some sleep? It helps to have a person that you know you don't need to get dressed up for, know you don't need to entertain, and that they can be a help and not a hindrance. For the pregnant moms listening, write down your person. Take a moment to do that right now. Then go ahead and have a frank discussion with that person and let them know what you're thinking. Sometimes the communication falls short or assumptions are made, and the person that you're depending upon to help you, well, it turns out that you wind up taking care of them, feeding them, and cleaning up around them. They act more like a guest in your home, and you really need to be able to let your hair down and have them help you. If you have a smooth birth with not much to write home about, and you and your baby are in sync with breastfeeding right away, your helper can still make life easier for you by cooking a few meals, putting up a few loads of laundry, and be good company for you. I know that one of the biggest factors in Nancy doing so well with all her post-birth hardships is the love and help of her husband, mother, and sister, who put her care as a top priority. I have a checklist which gives you some great, practical, easy to implement tips on what you can do to prepare for the birth of your baby to help your postpartum period go smoother. If you would like to get your hands on this, just send me an email, aabreastfeeding@hotmail.com. Put postpartum plan in this subject line, and I will email that to you within 2 days. This offer will be good only until April 30th. That's the end of this month. So go ahead and do that now. Send an email to aabreastfeeding@hotmail.com and put postpartum plan in the subject line. I hope you enjoyed the show today and learning a little bit about Nancy and her beautiful baby, Adam, and how they work through breastfeeding challenges. I look forward to spending time with you on the next show. Until then, bye-bye.